But legal practitioners have described the detention of Nnamdi Kanu as trial by ordeal as against the required trial by the Constitution. The lead legal counsel to Nnamdi Kanu, Alo Ejimakor Esquire, made the assertion during a press briefing with journalists in Abuja. According to Barrister Ejimakor, the case has turned from a judicial matter to a political matter owing to the calls from persons and organizations calling for a solution of the case outside the judicial part.
Apparently, in taking the decision to proscribe IPOB and declare it a terrorist group, neither the Southeast governors who fired the first salvo nor the federal government had recourse to Section 42 of the Nigerian Constitution, which is a fundamental right, a section guaranteeing the fundamental right of every Nigerian against discrimination based on ethnicity. I'm saying this because later in time this matter went to court, and the High Court of Enugu State, in a landmark ruling, pronounced the executive action or administrative action leading to that prescription as violative of Section 42 of the Constitution based on some ethnic considerations against the Igbo. In March 2018, the African Union, through its African Commission on Human and People's Rights, which administers human rights adjudications in the continent of Africa, held against the federal government that the prescription was wrong under the African Charter, which bound Nigeria. Nigeria ratified the African Charter in 1983, and from that date it is bound by it. So this African Commission on Human and People's Rights had clear jurisdictions to decide this case, and it decided against the federal government and wrote a strongly worded letter to the then President of Nigeria to retrace his steps and restore IPOB to its former legal status and cease and desist from further arresting or harassing or persecuting members of IPOB. Yet, from the date of issuance of that decision to when the former president left office, nothing was done. Rather, the opposite was done.
Alo Ejimakor, while narrating the ordeals faced by Nnamdi Kanu, said in spite of Nigeria being a ranking member of African Union, the government had failed to implement provisions of the African Charter as well as other regional and international human rights laws and standards.
The persecution, prosecution, arrest, torture, everything became even worse. It is pertinent to mention at this juncture, perhaps as a necessary digression, that had the former president of Nigeria implemented that directive issuing from the African Union, a lot of people who died, numbering in the hundreds, some say in the thousands, and in fact, including Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's infamous extraordinary rendition from Kenya in 2021, wouldn't have happened. A lot of lives would have been saved, and the nation would have been more at peace. And we will not have the insecurity that we are grappling with today in the Southeast. And further to the decision of the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, the United Nations, through its special rapporteurs, transmitted a decision in 2020, May, precisely 2020, no, in October 2020, condemning the proscription, IPOB, and the terrorist tag placed on it. The quotations of what they said are contained in our press release, and they are verbose. But the summary of what they are saying is that the action of the federal government was driven by some ethnic considerations against the Igbo, and that the action offended every known canon of international human rights law. Consequently, this organ, which is a very important organ of the United Nations, directed the federal government to do the opposite by deproscribing IPOB. Here we are with the dramatis personae, the most single factor in this whole saga is Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, who remains in detention to this day under questionable circumstances.
The 16th of January 2025 makes it 9 years since the arrest and detainment of Nnamdi Kanu, who was charged for treasonable felony and other crimes. His legal counsel described his continued detention as illegal.